the best drum intro ever, in my opinion. David Garibaldi playing the intro to a tune called Squib Cakes by Tower Power. So let's get into it. All right, so here's me executing as best as I can the drum intro, and then I'll break it down for you. Okay, so this intro is a 4-bar phrase. Bars 1 and 2 repeat themselves, so let's go over those first. The third bar becomes a variation of bars 1 and 2. The first half of the third bar is the same as bars 1 and 2, but then he doesn't open the hi-hat. Well, it's easier if I just play it for you. Okay, the fourth bar would be put bars 3 and 4 together, you get this. It's difficult to play this thing slow. So bars 3 and 4 kind of become their own groove, and that's what's so cool about this drum intro, because it's so musical, and like you can take parts of what Dave Garibaldi did on this intro and it becomes its own thing. I'll play bars 3 and 4 up to tempo. You break this thing down to its components and then work on the stuff that's difficult for you, and gradually you can put it back together again. Okay, so the footage you just saw was recorded several weeks ago. So I was going to record some more content, is what I'm saying here. And then, of course, I fell and broke my collarbone while I was running. So I haven't been able to play the drums at all for several weeks. And I can play the drums for a little while now, so I can at least play long enough to get my point across, which is this. This drumming channel is called The Creative Drummer. It's not just about copying other drummers, but I wanted to take a little deeper dive into that and show you a specific way that I think would help develop your own vocabulary, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. It's always nice to have some sort of methods that you can draw upon. So, I think we can all agree that regarding this 4-bar drum intro, the 4th bar has a really cool hi-hat opening thing going on right after beat 2. Let's just take that piece of it and see if we can come up with our own variation. The open hi-hat is on the E of 2 and beat 3. So first you have to make sure that you've got that down. And you have to be aware of what your left foot is doing as well. So when I'm hitting the open hi-hat on the E of 2, my foot is closing it on the and of 2. When I'm hitting the hi-hat open on beat 3, my left foot is closing it on either the E of 3 or the AND of 3, depending on how long I want the open hi-hat to ring. So that's going to be your ostinato pattern. So you start simple. So let's play that hi-hat pattern with 1 and 3 in the kick, 2 and 4 in the snare. Okay, so I'm using 2 rights as approach notes to the E of 2. In other words, the and the of 1 on my right hand, left hand hits the snare on 2, I'm all set up for the E of 2 on the open hi-hat. I don't really want to get too involved in sticking because there are several stickings that'll work here. Just come up with a sticking that works for you. That happens to be what works best for me. All right, so once you're comfortable with that, and however long that takes, the next step would be to come up with different kick syncopations. Because the idea is this is your ostinato pattern on the hi-hat, 2 and 4 in the snare, and you just come up with different bass drum patterns. Now, there's several ways that you can do that. You can come up with specific rhythms on the bass drum and practice them against this ostinato pattern. Or you can just improvise, just play whatever comes to mind. In the beginning, it's better to practice specific patterns. So I'm going to play a relatively simple pattern on the kick drum with this ostinato hi-hat, so you can get a sense of how this is going to go. You'll see it becomes a coordination issue. Right? So there's any number of kick patterns that you can come up with, but you play it against this ostinato pattern. When that's totally comfortable and you're free to, you feel that you're free to do whatever you want, you're not done. Because why not shift that hi-hat pattern to after beat 1 instead of after beat 2? So that will be something like this. Okay, so you can now practice that against whatever you feel like coming up with on the kick. This is open-ended. Like, you could probably never come up with all the different permutations, but you don't have to. See, the thing is, at least for me, I wish I had more time to practice, but the fact is I don't. So when I do practice, I usually do something like this, and then I'll hit upon something that just sounds really cool. So I'll go with that. It's not like you have to master every combination that exists this way, but I mean, if you have the time, great. Because if you're able to do that, you'll be completely free to play whatever you want on the bass drum, and you'll have quite a large vocabulary around this whole idea. That's the idea. You're making this your own, coming up with your own patterns that you can then call upon intuitively. So, yeah, this is, there's an overwhelming amount of possibilities thereof. So that's what I wanted to show you guys, It's a great way to practice. It's a great way to build your vocabulary. And also, at the same time, there's a lot of coordination issues that you have to deal with and overcome. So you're working on your coordination, you're working on your vocabulary. There's a lot of stuff that you're basically improving on at once. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say is if it's not comfortable, that's good. It's that old cliche, which happens to be true. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. I mean, you don't practice stuff that's really easy. When you're playing on a gig and you're playing music, it should be comfortable. But when you're practicing stuff that you can't yet do. There's a whole neuroscience thing I could go into around that, but I suppose that'll be for another video. For now, I guess I'll leave it there. So I hope you guys found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.